She tried to fire me after I nearly died. I destroyed her career instead. I've always been the type to avoid conflict. A people pleaser to a fault. That's what my therapist called it. For over a decade, I've worked in marketing. I've had good bosses, mediocre ones, and a few I still have nightmares about. But there was one who stood above the rest. Not because she was brilliant or visionary, but because she was, without exaggeration, the worst boss I've ever had. Let's call her Pamela. She was in her 40s, and by the time she joined the company, I'd already been there for years. She was brought in as the new VP of Marketing and Sales for our mid-size retail brand. The gossip was that she was the fourth choice for the position, hired not for her qualifications but to calm nervous shareholders. From day one, she gave off a vibe like she'd walked in straight from a 2003 corporate parody. At first, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she was just settling in. But then days turned into weeks, and her routine became clear. She'd roll in after 10 a.m. like she owned the place, spend hours on long business lunches, and pour the rest of her energy into planning ridiculous company parties. Meanwhile, I, a manager under her, was doing the actual work of 2 or 3 people. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I was responsible for ensuring every store and the website were merchandised properly. All sales materials were delivered monthly, advertising was running, the departmental budget was set and managed, reporting was created, projects were PM'd, presentations and creative briefs prepared, and so much more. On top of that, I had access to Pamela's email and frequently sent messages on her behalf just to keep things from falling apart. Essentially, I was running her entire department while she took credit and schmoozed. I was burning out fast, but I kept telling myself that if I worked hard enough, maybe someone would notice. Maybe she'd step up. Maybe it would get better. Spoiler alert, it didn't. Pamela had this bizarre obsession with parties, quarterly luncheons, themed celebrations, random appreciation days. She spent obscene amounts of our budget on them. I repeatedly raised concerns about the costs, especially because we didn't even have the budget for most of it. But her solution? Take it out of next month's budget. We'll catch up later. Every month I had to submit a revised budget, one edited under her explicit instruction to make it look like her overspending was totally under control. It was shady. I knew it. But I didn't know how to push back without jeopardizing my job. So I kept going, head down, always exhausted. 12-hour days were my normal. I'd work in the office until evening, then jump back online once my kid went to bed. Weekends weren't breaks. They were just quieter times to catch up on the never-ending backlog. I didn't realize it at the time, but my body was screaming for help. It wasn't just the workload that wore me down. It was the slow, suffocating realization that Pamela was reckless with everything she touched. She didn't just overspend. She weaponized the budget. She'd cook the numbers, justify things that made no sense, and then toss it all at me to make it look right. I was essentially laundering her incompetence to make the department seem functional. I remember sitting at my desk staring at spreadsheets until my eyes blurred, trying to reconcile a party she threw for the sales team, complete with custom decor, branded cupcakes, and a live jazz trio, with a line item marked team training session. It was so transparent it hurt. I pushed back more than once, reminding her that accounting might notice. She waved it off with the same smug line every time. They won't. Just adjust it. You're good at that. What choice did I have? I had bills to pay, a family to care for. I told myself I was doing what I had to, but every new month came with a new lie. A budget built on shaky edits and backdated invoices. And with each one, my name was the one signing off, not hers. Things got worse during the holiday season. For retailers like us, Q4 was everything. The make or break quarter. The time when our promotions and visuals had to be razor sharp. But Pamela? She treated it like an improv comedy show. She kept scrapping approved visuals and demanding new ones, usually based on trends she saw on Pinterest or from her PR friend. She fired the agency we'd worked with for years and brought in some boutique firm she'd just adored, which turned out to be run by her college roommate. Then she did the same with our advertising agency. Every vendor she hired was a personal friend or someone she met at some lavish brunch. Meanwhile, she ignored our actual merchandise team, the ones who'd spent months planning sales strategies and forecasts. She tossed out their timelines and replaced them with her own. Rushed, inconsistent, and frankly dumb. We missed multiple key dates. Marketing materials were misaligned with inventory. It was a train wreck, and the numbers proved it. Our holiday sales tanked, hard. While that was happening, I was getting sicker. I didn't know it yet, but I was developing a serious infection. At first, I brushed it off as stress. Headaches, fatigue, fever, nausea. Just another part of the job. I pushed through, like I always did, until my husband forced me to the hospital, and they admitted me almost immediately. Sepsis. A full-body infection that, if left untreated, could have killed me. The doctor's words were chilling. You're lucky you got here when you did. He asked me about my lifestyle. I told him I worked in marketing. He gave me a look that said he'd seen this before. Stress, overwork, neglecting symptoms. It wasn't just bad luck. It was my job that had done this to me. The days that followed were a blur of IVs, tests, and whispered conversations with my husband about boundaries and balance. I was supposed to be resting, But my mind couldn't turn off. What was happening at work? Who was picking up the pieces? Was everything falling apart? Then one day, against my better judgment, I picked up my phone and logged into the company system. I still had access to Pamela's email. Just a quick peek, I told myself. What I found nearly made me rip out my IV. The first thing I saw was a flower delivery confirmation. A bouquet had been sent to my hospital room from the company. At first I smiled. It was a sweet gesture. But then I looked closer. The sender, Pamela, and the flowers, not my favorite, hers. A self-congratulatory gift disguised as compassion. I wasn't surprised, but I was still disappointed. I clicked into her inbox, intending to move the receipt into the appropriate folder for accounting. That's when I noticed several subject lines that weren't work-related. Curious, I opened them, and my blood pressure spiked. There was a thread between Pamela and several of her personal friends she had recently brought on as consultants, where she complained that I was milking my illness. She griped that I wasn't pushing through like a team player should. One line in particular hit me like a punch to the chest. She's got sepsis, not cancer. I don't know why she can't just get back to work. But it got worse. Another email thread showed Pamela talking to a former colleague, someone from a past job who clearly knew her management style. She was panicking about our tanking holiday sales. Her friend asked, "Isn't there someone under you who handles most of the day-to-day?" Pamela responded, "Yes, my name does pretty much everything." Her friend, clearly more experienced in corporate politics, laid out a plan. If Pamela couldn't fire me outright because of my medical leave, which could be seen as retaliation, she could still get rid of me if she could pin something serious on me. Fraud, mismanagement, or theft, something she could claim was discovered during my absence. I stared at the screen, stunned. She was plotting to fire me, not because I did anything wrong, but because I was in her way, because she was incompetent, because she needed someone to blame for her failure. And that someone was me. I sat in that hospital bed, IV dripping, heart racing. I realized I had spent years breaking my back for a boss who saw me as nothing more than a scapegoat, a disposable pawn. The worst part? She wasn't even smart enough to hide it. She'd left a trail of evidence, all in her inbox. I should have been resting, recovering, but something in me snapped that day. The people pleaser cracked, and something else took its place. By the time I was cleared to return to work, I wasn't the same. I still needed my job, still had a mortgage and a family to support. But I had something else now too, leverage. My first day back felt like walking into enemy territory. Pamela greeted me with a forced smile and that patronizing tone she reserved for people she was pretending to support. "I've been so worried about you," she said, like she hadn't just spent the last few weeks plotting my downfall. "You've been handling too much. I think we need to take a few things off your plate." I nodded slowly, not trusting myself to speak. Then she laid out her plan, or rather, her trap. From that day forward, I was no longer to handle the department budget. I was to drop a specific stack of invoices at accounting, and nothing more. I was not to speak to anyone in accounting about any financial matters. And if I had any concerns, any at all, I was to bring them to her, not HR. It was like watching a villain recite their monologue, thinking they were being clever. She believed she was cutting off my access, my voice, my power, but she was too late. What Pamela didn't know was that I had already built quiet alliances. One of them was with Lois, our senior accountant, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who had worked for the company longer than either of us. Lois had always looked out for me in her own way, dropping little hints and pieces of advice when she thought I was burning out. Before my medical leave, she told me something that suddenly echoed in my mind. "If you ever need help, I'm your girl." Now I needed help. When Pamela handed me that stack of invoices, I took them without a word. But I didn't just carry the papers. I also brought everything I had collected. The evidence I had quietly saved before my medical leave and what I'd gathered while recovering. First was a printout of the emails Pamela had sent while I was in the hospital. The ones mocking my illness, admitting she didn't know where any of the departmental files were, and conspiring with a friend to use me as a scapegoat. Second was a hard copy of our most recent unedited monthly budget, the real one, untouched by Pamela's pen. That alone would have shown the difference between what we submitted and what she wanted it to look like. But the real gems were the older documents. Previous month's budgets with Pamela's handwriting all over them, instructing me to fudge numbers, reallocate funds, and balance things in ways that were clearly unethical, if not outright illegal. And then, the cherry on top, a printed email from our very first adjustment conversation, where Pamela not so subtly warned me that she could find someone else to handle the budget if I couldn't figure it out. I slid the invoices and the folder into my bag and made my way to accounting. As fate would have it, Lois was there, just outside her office. We made eye contact. She smiled. Polite, professional. "Hey, back already? That's good news." "I'm just dropping these off," I said casually, holding up the invoices. Then I lowered my voice and added, "Pamela says you're only supposed to speak to her about anything budget-related." Lois paused, her smile fading into something sharper. Her eyes flicked to the thick file I was holding. I set it on her desk and gave her a look that said everything without saying a word. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. She just gave me a firm nod and gently kicked me out of her office with a smile. I went back to my desk like nothing had happened, logged into my email, scheduled a few meetings, smiled at people in the hallway, pretended that I wasn't waiting for the corporate bomb to drop. It didn't take long. By the end of the week, Pamela was gone. No tearful farewell. No forced, "we wish her well in her future endeavors" email from upper management. Just a sudden, quiet vacuum where her office used to be. One day she was sitting there micromanaging party decorations, and the next she was erased from the building like she'd never existed. Word spread fast, of course. Office gossip is faster than any formal announcement. People whispered in break rooms, over coffee machines, in private Slack messages. Did you hear? Did she resign? Did they fire her? No one knew the full story, but I did. And Lois probably did too. The official line, when I was finally called into a meeting with the CEO and HR, was that there had been inconsistencies in financial reporting and management concerns that warranted immediate termination. But what truly caught me off guard was what came next. The CEO, a man I'd only interacted with briefly before, looked me in the eye and said, "We owe you an apology. What you went through shouldn't have happened. We're grateful for, everything you've done here, and we want to make that clear." Then he gave me something I didn't expect, a paid 1-week vacation. No work calls, no strings attached. Just a full week to breathe, rest, and recover. For real this time. Almost cried right there in the room, but I didn't. I smiled, thanked them, and took the vacation. I went somewhere quiet with my family, turned off my phone, and for the first time in years, let myself feel the weight of everything I'd been carrying, and the relief of having finally dropped it. Still, I didn't stay at the company forever. There were other issues. Systemic ones, bigger than Pamela, and after about a year, I left on my own terms. But this time, I didn't leave with shame or stress or exhaustion. I left with my head high, my spine straighter, and the knowledge that I had stood up for myself in the end. That would have been the perfect ending, but fate wasn't done with me just yet. Fast forward to now, over 5 years later, I've rebuilt my career, piece by piece. I'm once again a manager in sales and marketing, but this time, it's different. I work under a boss named Mike, early 40s, sharp, fair, and actually knows how to lead. He trusts my decisions, supports me publicly, and lets me run my department without breathing down my neck. It's not just refreshing, it's healing. Recently, Mike tasked me with hiring new staff to build out my own team. For the first time in my career, I was going to pick who I wanted to lead, train, and grow alongside me. I was excited. I opened up the applicant portal and began browsing resumes. That's when I saw it. Her name. At first, I thought it had to be someone else. Just a coincidence. But as I scanned the resume, the details confirmed it. Pamela. Same last name. Same career timeline. Same string of roles after our company. Shorter and shorter with each new position. She had clearly fallen down the corporate ladder. The title of VP at our former company was still the highest rank she ever held. Everything after that read like a desperate attempt to cling to relevance. Contractor roles, brief consulting gigs, a series of director-level jobs that didn't seem to last more than a few months. But what truly made my jaw tighten was the boldness of her lies. She claimed sole credit for driving 87% sales growth during the holiday season, the same season that nearly ended my career and put me in the hospital. She listed major projects that I had built from scratch, campaigns that I had pitched, executed, and optimized, all under her name. Reading her resume felt like watching a burglar show off the jewels they stole from your house. I could have interviewed her. I could have set up a face-to-face meeting, just to watch her squirm, just to see the moment she recognized me and realized whose desk her resume had landed on. But I didn't. I thought about Mike, about the trust he placed in me, about the kind of leader I wanted to be. Petty satisfaction wasn't worth risking that. So instead, I did the one thing that felt more powerful than confrontation. I clicked disqualified. One simple, silent motion. No drama, no confrontation. Just justice. Pamela would never know how close she came, how perfectly the universe had aligned for her to land right back in front of the person she tried to destroy, and how that person, the one she mocked, the one she lied about, the one she tried to fire while they were fighting for their life, now had the final say. I thought about sending a personal rejection letter, one that gently reminded her that the past has a way of catching up. But honestly, clicking that button was enough. Sometimes the most satisfying revenge is no revenge at all, just quietly watching someone face the consequences of their own choices and letting them wonder how close they came to getting what they wanted before I took it away with a single click.
The case has been heard. The stories have been told. Now it's your turn to judge. Leave your verdict in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe. The Court of Stories is always in session.